So, thanks again for joining me, Noelle.
Yeah, of course.
It must have been a whirlwind weekend for you.
It has been. I'm honestly like a little dazed in a good
Mhm.
way. It's been a really, really just like overwhelming and again in a really, really good way experience. Just like this outpouring of love that's like beyond my wildest dreams. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, I must say, I think you've created a masterpiece, and I think it'll be remembered for generations to come, especially for queer animated lovers. So, to start off on a light note, I've seen people online already. It's only been a couple days, but there's already tons of fan art and everything, and people are really freaking out. Well, besides the kiss, over Shira's new muscles and then Catra's haircut. So I was wondering if you could take me through obviously over the past 5 seasons you've uh these characters have transformed emotionally and mentally, but also obviously physically too. So you take me just to the process of what it was like to, I guess, evolve with these characters over the past couple of years, and are you gonna miss them? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super gonna miss them. I already miss
Mhm,
them. It's,
mhm,
they're a part of me. They feel like my friends. They feel like
mhm,
people that I spent several years, in very close quarters with. I think that, the process of watching them change is really interesting. I think Adora is one of the characters who when we create an animated show, you come up with a character model and that's what you send to the animation studio, and they use that. It's like every conceivable view of the character and they use that to animate them.
mhm,
Dora, this has actually, I think, been like a running joke with the fandom where she hasn't changed her look since season one. Even when she left
mhm,
the Horde, she still is wearing the same clothes that she wore in the Horde with a slight adjustment. So her model hasn't changed since season one, and I think that says a lot about her character because she's someone who's just she's not very confident in herself. She's not sure what her personal style is or what she wants to wear or look like or
mhm,
any of those things. So I think that there's a reason that her model hasn't changed. But at the same time, I think that the way that we on our end, the board artists, were drawing her, and then also the way that our animation studio was drawing her started to change over the years. And so I think it really feels like time is passing. um she feels older, like all of the characters feel older.
and mature. Yeah.
And then yeah, so it's even though the model hasn't changed, even though the design asset is the same, these characters are changing and growing with the story, with the time that was passing in world. So I think it's really cool to watch and kind of compare the first season to the last,
Mhm,
because it does feel like that time has passed. And then with Catra, she's someone who's actually changed her look a lot because I think she's someone who's just always trying to kind of have a calculated angle into everything and figure out how to be on top of any given situation. But I think it's really interesting with her look in the last season because she is suddenly, I think the haircut makes her a lot more outwardly vulnerable than she's ever been. In season four, she has this mask that she's been wearing the whole show. She's always smoothing down her hair. She's trying to hide her emotions. She doesn't really use her ears or her tail to emote as much as she used to. She's not showing all her kind of her cat aspects as much. And then, she goes through this traumatic incident in season five where Horde Prime, he takes her mask, he cuts her hair, and it's not her choice. But because of that, he sort of forces her to be vulnerable. And I think that after that, she starts reclaiming those aspects of her, identity. She lets her hair get kind of messy. She starts expressing herself more in this kind of cat-like way. And for the first time, I think we're really seeing her be vulnerable. We're really
mhm,
seeing her kind of she doesn't have this hard mask on anymore. She's letting herself be this softer version of herself. And so I think that that haircut and that outfit change really show that. And I think she looks so different. I mean, she just keeps changing throughout the course of the show, and she keeps growing, I think. And so she just like, she looks so different. It's just amazing to see how far all the characters have come. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think their new design, her new design, and then Shira's new design also is just like, you know, that part of Adora's heart that is very pure. It's just made of love and made of like this strength and the need to protect her friends. And it, you know, seeing their new designs, it just makes me really proud of them.
Mhm. I know the queer girls on Twitter were like loving the short haircut too. So. And then Shira's new transformation sequence was everything too. Because
Yes.
I grew up a Sailor Moon fan, so I love a transformation sequence.
I find them so satisfying. Everybody just wants to be able to like, you know,
Yeah.
just twirl around a few times in
Mhm.
some sparkles and then have like an incredible new outfit. Like I would love that.
And that's like a very like queer sensibility too, because like I guess like it's a little on the nose, but like transforming it, you become like your true self or like a heightened version of yourself. And that's what I love about Shira.
Yeah.
To get into the thick of things, Adora and Catra's relationship has gone through many different ups and downs, the twists and turns throughout the past 4 seasons. And in season 5, they really start to find their way back to each other.
Yeah.
I love that. And
Yeah.
although their friendship and their relationship and their partnership like isn't the same as when they were children in the Horde,
Mhm.
I feel like it's more authentic and real, and they can finally start to like, really open up to each other.
Totally.
Um, can you talk a little about like their continuing dynamic and just like what it was like to learn and grow and play these amazing young women over the course of these whole 52 episodes?
Yeah, as far as the relationship with Catra goes, I think this is true of anybody, not just these characters, but anybody who grows up with someone. There is a period of conflict and independence that needs to happen, and they both sort of needed that time away from each other in order to fully understand who they were as individuals, in order to have any kind of friendship or any kind of relationship, because so often we lash out at the people that are closest to us for things that they're not even responsible for, you know. So there might be a lot of like personal issues that we have to deal with. And for Catra, I can't speak for AJ's kind of experience with this, but like for Catra and Adora, I feel like there was this trust issue. Like Catra really felt super betrayed by Adora, and Adora was just trying to find herself. And it wasn't until they both committed to sort of finding their own truths that they were able to take the next step forward in mending that and repairing the relationship. So as far as Catra and Adora goes, I think that it was a necessary evil, and it was a necessary discomfort, and obviously heartbreaking to watch and have to play, but also really interesting because so often we have to walk away from the people closest to us in order to have a better relationship with them in the future. And I think for Adora, you know, she starts off with what she feels is a really super strong sense of identity, and then that's completely wiped away. So not only does she not know where she comes from, everything she's learned up to that minute has been a lie. So she has to sort of reteach herself and feel the betrayal from like someone like Shadow Weaver, and even the betrayal she feels for someone like Catra for not coming with her. Even though that could be misplaced, but you know, all of the conflicting emotions that come from just having no clue who you are and having to rebuild that from scratch is, I think, a pretty intense journey. And that's where we find Adora most of the seasons, picking up little bits and pieces and clues about her identity. And then finally, when we enter season 5, she sort of lost her crutch as far as like Shira is no longer a part of her toolbox. So how is she going to move forward with just herself? Because she had this sort of helper when she was trying to find more answers, but now she's completely naked and she's completely alone as far as that goes. So how does she, it just becomes more challenging for her. So it's been like, this is the longest winded answer ever, but to answer your question, it's been such a joy as an actor to be able to play real circumstances, even though we're dealing with a world that is fantasy and the characters that are, you know, literally out of the universe and out of this world. It's just been like such a treat.
That's why I think a lot of queer people like latched onto the show and attached to it, because that grappling with identity and that struggle is very like very something a lot of queer people can relate to. So that's awesome that you expanded on that.
Yeah, and also the fact that like she was able, it wasn't until she took that step of walking away from everything she knew, and I can't imagine how scary that must be in regards to, you know, having to walk away from your community if they are not accepting of you. Having to start over is something that is unimaginable for so many people, but for so many people is their everyday life. And so to be able to see our heroine not only learn how to be a hero throughout all this process and be a leader for her community, but also find a community that is accepting of her after she takes that big plunge, is really kind of inspiring to watch and play.
Chosen family.
Family, absolutely.
Yeah. I know Adora and Catra's relationship has been gone through the ringer. There's so many twists and turns and ups and downs over the past 4 seasons. But in season 5, especially after Catra was captured by Horde Prime with Glimmer, Catra and Adora start to finally find their way back to each other, and their friendship and partnership is like starting to rekindle. And I know it wasn't the same before as when they were children in the Horde, but I feel like it's more real and authentic now because they get to like open up to each other and be vulnerable and actually start to see each other again. So can you talk a little about, I guess, their continuing dynamic? I know it was just like to play, see their evolution of their friendship and their relationship blossom over these past 52 episodes, and what it was like just to play this amazing young woman who like grew and changed. That was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the arc of Catra was really intense. I mean, she went from, you know, a bit of a rebel in the rebellion. You know what I mean? Like she always kind of lived her life that way. In terms of just her personality, like she was very much, you know, a kind of independent woman, independent thinker, didn't really roll with the rest of the kids. And I think that I think that people really saw that she was different. And I think that's what kind of drew Adora to her as a friend. I think after they've grown up, Catra has constantly felt like Adora left her, as opposed to the rebellion. And I think that she's taken it so personally that at this point, it's been hard for her to figure out exactly who she is and who she's really fighting for. Is she fighting for, you know, is she fighting for her friendship? Or at this point, is she just truly seeing red and wants to be the villain that she's, you know, tried to be for a long time? And I think that's been a hard thing for her to grapple with. You know, she has dealt with Hordak. She's now having to deal with Horde Prime. She's never had to deal with someone like Horde Prime. Can she use the same little tricks and quips that she used with Hordak? What is she going to get away with? Will she make it to the top? And is she going to be the true villain we've all kind of seen her try to become? I don't think it's truly in her heart. I think that she wants to do good at the end of the day. And I think that she's fighting for her friendship with Adora. And so we've been able to see that throughout this most recent season that, you know, maybe there is a friendship that can be saved. And I think at the end of the day, that's all Catra's wanted. She just hasn't known how to go about it.
But when she like pitched the series and created the series, she wanted to be self-contained to 52 episodes, but with like the past of Mara as She-Ra, and then the present with Adora as She-Ra, and then the possibility of like future generations of She-Ras. There's also the possibility of like spin-offs and like maybe a bigger She-Ra universe. If the opportunity presented itself, would you want to come back and like play Catra again and expand more on that character if it came down in the future?
Yes. Are you kidding? I want to be a part of this forever. Like, I'm so sad it's coming to a close technically. I mean, who knows? You know, there are so many opportunities now for spinoff, and like a show like Steven Universe, no one knew a movie would be made, and then the movie came out, and that was a really cool moment for the fans. So who knows? Like, if there's a world where this turns into a film franchise, like I would want to be a part of it for years. I mean, this is something that I'll kind of treasure, hopefully for like future kids that I have, that I can show them this was something that we represented back in, you know, Netflix, if that's around still. Who knows what that'll become, television and streaming. But it's just really neat to have that that moment where you can look back and go, oh my gosh, I voiced some of these really incredible characters like Catra and like Stevani, and I've been really blessed to do so. So if there's an opportunity where we can expand that into a new universe and a spinoff, I would be absolutely in.
And the fans would love that too.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So I was talking to Noelle about this, but she really created the Shira series to be like self-contained 52 episodes.
Yeah.
So with like, there was Mara in the past, Adora in the present, and the possibility of future generations of Shiras. Maybe like, if it came down to it, and like the property expanded to like maybe like a Shira-verse, and there was other side projects and stuff, would you want to come back and like?
Oh, absolutely, without blinking an eye. It's almost kind of uncomfortable every time I talk to Noelle. I'm like, so the next, like we should do like a thing where we collaborate all the time, and you just cast me. And she like tries to be polite about it, but I'm not polite about it. I'm just like, anything she does, I want to be a part of, because Noelle has a really special gift that a lot of storytellers don't necessarily have in this capacity, which is she's able to take what's going on around her and what's going on in our world and our local communities and translate that into storytelling that is not only a joy to watch, but also makes you think. And that's something that's really hard to do. And I don't know how she does it. And she does it with such nuance and grace that it's just not something you see every day. Being able to write a female hero that's not just in the lens of like, well, she's strong because she has all of these like classically male qualities. Like, it's, you know what I mean? They didn't just put like a male storyline into like a female context. She actually, I think with a lot of nuance and like just gentleness, was able to weave in a lot of like, interesting qualities to Adora that isn't just like, this is a typical hero storyline that we're used to seeing, and it's because she has all these male qualities, if that makes sense.
We stand Noelle, storyteller.
Really do. The card-carrying member of the Noelle Stevenson family.
So let's break down the kiss. So at the beginning, I don't think I've ever seen another anime show like when Catra explicitly is reaching out for Adora and she says, "I love you." I don't think I've ever seen that in another like animated show, even with a lot of queer characters. An explicit like "I love you." So was that like an intentional thing, or like can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah,
That was so powerful to hear like a "I love you." Two women saying "I love you."
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was powerful for us too. It was, it was something. I came forward with what I wanted to do with these characters and the ending that I visualized for them, because I think their story has always been about them finding each other again and coming back together after everything that they've been through, after all of the hardship and all of the misfortune that both of them have gone through. These are the two characters, I think, who have been through the most their whole lives. And as soon as it was something where I was like, look, I want this to be romantic. I want this ending for them to be romantic. And I got the sign off for that. Oh. It was like, for me, it was like, what do I want this to look like? How do we pull that through in the end? And the one thing that I knew was that they were so central to the story that the only thing that would feel right would be for that confession to also be central to the story. So it is the climactic moment of the entire show, that moment, that confession, that kiss. And that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be everything that we've been building to. The message of love that's always been at the heart of the show. It becomes about this moment between two people who've been trying to get back to each other and getting farther and farther apart through this whole show. And I think, honestly, it's like, it felt like something that I had needed to see. I don't know. It's like, I remember going to see, like, Lord of the Rings as a kid. This is, like, I guess it's funny, but, like, Frodo and Sam alone on Mount Doom at, like, the end of all things, and just crying my eyes out and seeing this moment of intimacy, of seeing these two men just, like, hold each other and express their love for each other. And as a kid, I'm like, what's happening? What's going on here? Like, like, and the emotion was so, it worked so well, but like there was a part of me that's like that felt like more, that it felt like it could have been something more. And so I think there was an aspect of that which is like, well, what does that look like? What if you could have that moment and have that moment be romantic? What if it wasn't something that was out of place in that huge epic moment at the climax of this fantasy epic that you've been following? What if we could really have that? And so that was like, I wanted to see if we could. I wanted to see if that would work. And having it be at that climax, it really is just a message of just like, this isn't incidental. This isn't something to take out. This isn't something to gloss over. This is what this story is. This is who these characters are, and this is who I am. And I needed to see that version of the story, because you're right. I don't think I've ever seen it either. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what went into it. It was big.
Did you have did you have any like romantic like inspirations from other media in the past that kind of like worked its way in, or like how did you when you like first envisioned like this scene specifically, what were you thinking and drawing back from?
It's interesting. Now that you bring it up, it's like, I don't know. I felt like as a kid, I didn't really connect with romance very much. I would see romance in media, and I just like didn't ever really feel a big feeling about it. Or I was kind of like, I don't want to see this. Like show something else. And I felt like a lot of times, like, I don't think that romance, I didn't care for it, honestly, until I fell in love with my wife. And I didn't like see myself in it, certainly because I'd only ever seen street romance, you know? And then once I fell in love with my wife, and once I, started dating her, and then once we got married, that changed. And my heart started changing, because like, I was going through that journey where like I had closed myself off my whole life. And then suddenly I was letting myself be soft again. And like, suddenly all that romance started affecting me in a way that I hadn't expected. And so when it comes to references, I don't know that there was a reference. I don't know that there was something that I'm like, I mean, the Frodo and Sam thing is, I think it was very like formative as well, because there was something there, and there was something that I wanted to see that felt different, but I didn't have the words for it at that time. But I don't know. I the depth of that feeling, like it almost worked for me because it wasn't romantic at that time. But then as I've like matured as a storyteller, it's like how that depth of emotion, we can still have that in romance. We can still have that in queer romance, especially. And so I think that it was just like this sort of growing appreciation for the concept of romance, and that romance is a very powerful thing. I think it's become a cliche over time, because like we only ever see one kind. Mm-hmm. But it's something that really like deeply affects me now. And I think that like having more queer romance at the forefront will be good for straight romance as well. I think that there needs to be a shakeup. I think there needs to be an evolution, because this is something that's very important, and it is something that's very powerful. We can't let it get stale. It's not stale. It's a hugely important thing. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying I'm not actually sure there are any reference for me anyway. I think Mickey, the board artist, might have had some. I know that she drew a lot of inspiration from Utena for her sections in that episode, which it's not as like much of an influence for me, but yeah.
Love that. If you had to be stuck in quarantine or self-isolation with one of the show's characters, who would you choose and why?
Oh boy. Well, my first instinct is Scorpia. I think Scorpia would be an excellent quarantine buddy. I feel like she can make tiny foods, as we've seen. I think that she would make like lots of tiny little cupcakes. I think that she'd again, she'd give really great hugs. If I were having like a quarantine-induced meltdown, I think she would like wrap me in a blanket and hold me, which I would love. And I feel like she'd be really fun to just like watch TV with and hang out with. So yeah, Scorpio would definitely be my choice.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah.
If you had to be stuck in quarantine or self-isolation with one of the series characters, who would you choose and why?
I would choose Scorpia without hesitation because she's so positive.
Uh-huh.
You need that. You need somebody who has like the glass half full mentality when you're in quarantine, because sometimes things can get a little dicey. So I would say Scorpio without a doubt. She also would be able to do a lot of the tasks with me, which would be important. Like, I don't know how far this is going to go, but if I needed somebody to, grapple some toilet paper off of somebody that's hoarding, like, I feel like Scorpio is up to the task.
Yeah.
So we would just have a really good time.
Noelle said the exact same thing, and then like making little food. So Scorpio has that energy.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, it would be nice to have all the princesses together in quarantine and Marcus, Bo. But I just think that if I had to pick one, I would just have to go with like, what's going to help me survive? Positivity, brute strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. If you had to be stuck in self-quarantine or self-isolation with one of the characters from She-Ra, who would you choose and why?
That's a great question. Honestly, I would have to choose Scorpia. I think that at some point, if this was Catra and Scorpia living together, it probably wouldn't be a great idea because I think they drive each other nuts. But AJ and Scorpia, I think we would be best friends.
Yeah.
First of all, I think that character is hilarious. And I think that in terms of comedic relief, it would add so much happiness to the day, especially during isolation. And I also feel like, having her little pinchers could be necessary for many things. Opening canned goods and, I don't know what else at the moment, but I feel like having Scorpio around would be like a best friend. Like, I think she's comedically hilarious, and I think that we'd have a blast together.
Aimee and Noelle both said Scorpio too, so she must radiate some best friend energy because that's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's so cute.
And Lauren Ash too. Lauren Ash is just a comedic powerhouse. I've talked to her a couple times. But
she's amazing, and like knowing her voice and having it be kind of ingrained in your head at this point, just because her rhythm is so specific, and then seeing her on like a live action show like Superstore, I'm like, she nails it. She nails it. Animated, live action. She's just got it.
Love it. We stand.
Stan.